strive to take your faith to the next level. Yes, faith in God, faith in you, faith in your ability. Today, I want to talk to you about, should you serve God or should you leave him alone? And, and the reason why I'm doing this lesson is because on my journey, I realized that if I would have had maybe a mentor, a proper teacher, there's some things that I could have learned in the forefront about what it takes to be obedient and faithful to this walk with the Lord. And I just wanted to bring some things to someone's attention, because there's a lot of teaching out there. A lot of teaching out there is really not truthful. It's really off topic and off base. And I really want to get down this year to really teaching people truthful and wholesome teaching from the Bible to really help them to make a sound decision and build a true relationship and true faith with God. So with saying that, I want you to turn to Genesis chapter 4. And basically, we're going to look at the story of Cain and Abel, and it's verses 1 through 16. And I'm not going to read the whole verse because I want you to go read verses 1 through 16. But I'm going to hit on two scriptures just to point out two certain points. Genesis chapter 4, and we're going to look at verse 14. And here we go. Thou hast driven me out this day from the face of the earth, and from the face shall I be hidden, and shall I be a fugitive and a vagabond on the earth. It shall come to pass that every one that findeth me shall slay me. And the Lord said unto him, Therefore, whosoever slay Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. So most of us know the story of Cain and Abel. And if you read verses 1 through 16, you're going to hear the story about how Cain slayed his younger brother because the Lord had given basically favor, or not really favor, to Abel, but Abel offered the first fruits of what he had, and Cain didn't. But the reason why I want to point this out to you is for this simple fact. As you see that when you're in the presence of the Lord and you're doing everything that the Lord asks you to do, everything is all good. But I also want you to look at verse 16, and it says, Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and dwelled in Nimrod, east of Eden. So you think about that. After the Lord punished Cain, he chose to go out of the presence of the Lord. And what you'll find if you continue to read the story is that the Lord didn't follow him. And that's what I want to tell you is, if you're choosing to serve the Lord, then serve him. If you're choosing to not serve the Lord, then just leave him alone and stay out of his presence. And as long as you don't bother him and his people, the Lord won't bother you. That's just how he rolls. So I'm going to give you another instance. I want you to turn to Exodus chapter 32. So we got Exodus chapter 32, and most of us know the story of Israel, which is God chosen people. And God chose Israel because these people were the lesser people on the earth, and that's what the scripture says. That's why he says he chose them and he made a covenant with them. But also, what I want to point out to you is what God said about Israel and what when you tell God you're going to serve him, make sure you do it, because you don't want to get to a predicament like Israel where you make God mad. So when you get some time, I want you to go to Exodus 32, and I want you to read verses 1 through 14. But I want to hit on a couple verses just showing the point of God's reaction to Israel and what he said about Israel and what he was going to do to them before Moses interceded. So I'm going to read verses 7 and 8, and then I'm going to read verse number 10. So Exodus 32, verses 7. And the Lord said unto Moses, Go, get thee down there, for these people which thou broughtest out of the land of Egypt have corrupted themselves. They have turned aside quickly out of the way which I command them. They have made them a moth calf and have worshipped it and sacrificed thereunto, said these by their gods, O Israel, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt. And verse 10, now therefore let me alone, that my wrath may wax hot against them, and I may consume them, and I will make of thee a great nation. That's what the Lord told Moses about Israel. Israel made the golden calf, and God was mad. He was very angry about that. He was gonna do some he was gonna pour out his wrath on them. But then as you read farther in the story, what you're gonna find out is Moses interceded and talked God out of not pouring out his wrath on Israel. So the moral of the story is this. Like I said before, if you're going to serve the Lord, serve him. If you're not going to serve him, it's probably in your best interest just to leave him alone. Now, I'm not just going to show you things in the New Testament, in the Old Testament. I'm going to take you to the New Testament, and I'm going to show you some examples in there too, so you can get the gist. Even when Jesus is walking on the earth, you will see similar situations showing you the same thing, not forcing you to serve the Lord. So, how about turning to Matthew chapter 13? Matthew chapter 13, and I want you to read verses 53 through 58. And this story is about Jesus just really not getting honor in his own town. His own people from where he grew up at, where he was raised, people that know him, knew his mother, all his family. But now he's being seen as the Messiah, the Christ, and his own people received him not. But let's see what he did. And I want to concentrate on two verses, number 57 and number 58. Let's read it. And they were offended in him. But Jesus said unto them, a prophet is not without honor, save it in his own country, in his own house. And he did not do mighty works there because of their unbelief. So even in his own place, he didn't force them to believe. He didn't force them to accept the teaching. He said he didn't do much in his own country because of their unbelief. So he's not going to force the word on you. He's not going to force these things. And that's why I don't force any teaching on anyone. And anyone that's forcing teaching on someone, guess what? They're not operating in the spirit of God. So you got to be aware of these things. You got to be conscious of these things, because if you're not, what's going to happen is you're going to think someone's operating in the spirit of God and they're not. But I'm going to give you another example. I want you to turn to Acts chapter 22. And this is another example where you have Paul, and which Paul is Saul. And at one point, Paul which was known for persecuting the followers of Christ. But I want you to go read the story about Paul. And you read chapter 22. You can read verses 1 through 6, this particular story. But I'm really going to concentrate on verse 7. And verse 7 is the Lord coming to Paul and asking him, why is he persecuting his people? And here we go. Verse 7. And I fell into the ground, and I heard a voice saying unto me, Saul, Saul, why persecutest thou me? That's Paul telling the people what happened to him. And all this time, Paul was persecuting the people for serving the Lord. And guess what? The Lord didn't bother him until he got tired of Paul bothering his people. And then once Paul got hit with a little dose from the Lord, guess what? Now he had something to deal with. But you have all these stories in and out of the Bible, through in and throughout, to give you the examples and say, hey, you know what? If you want to serve the Lord, cool. But he's also going to give you what it takes to serve the Lord. And the reason why I had this lesson is because a lot of times we're not being taught this stuff so we can make a sound decision. And you think about it, even Jesus, he sat with the publicans, he sat with all the people that wasn't doing necessarily the right things. But what he said was very interesting. He said, I came to the ones that need a physician. So those people believed, but they understood that they were not in a position to, they wasn't ready. They wasn't ready to serve the Lord. It wasn't that they didn't believe, but they wasn't ready to serve the Lord. But I say all this to say this. So I've given you 4 examples of how the Lord has dealt with different people in the Bible, whether it be from the Old Testament to the New Testament. There's plenty of other stories in the Bible that essentially you can look at and really see how God dealt with people that either serve him or didn't serve him. And like I say, this is what the lesson is about. Uh, should you follow God or should you just leave him alone? And if you're not ready to truly serve the Lord and commit and understand what baptism is, which is my next lesson, God is about covenants. And what you will see all through this Bible is a covenant. When he makes a covenant, he takes a covenant serious. And the covenant, when you get baptized, you say that you are willing to serve the Lord and you understand fully what is required of you and what God says, what his promises he says he's going to do for his believer. But a lot of people can't get to the place of faith that they have the opportunity to because they have a lot of different things that have hindered their ability to grow, whether it's race, religion, education, politics, in people's minds and their experiences, whether it be past, present, or future, have been just very distorted on about who God is and what God's about, and do I need him or do I not need him? So I recommend you to just read. Faith comes by hearing. And remember that at the end of the day, it's your choice. God's not going to force you to serve him. He's not even going to mess with you. As long as you could probably go and have a long life living as a good Samaritan. But at some point, he says in the scripture, he's going to judge. But I can't judge you. No one else can judge you. It's up to you for you to decide your walk in this life and what you believe and what you don't believe. I just want to make sure I give you some sound information and point you to the doctrine that I believe to be true, which is this Bible. And that's what I'm striving to get to the people as my calling, as my commitment to the Lord is to continue to grow and continue to spread the gospel in the best way I know how, which is taking you to the text and letting you read the truth for yourself. So, you too, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching Next Level Teaching. Like I said, my next lesson will be hitting on baptism and all the things that go along with baptism. Until next time, y'all be blessed.